The trade war between the United States and China has been simmering for years, with tensions periodically flaring up and then cooling down. It has now erupted again with renewed intensity, capturing the attention of global markets and policymakers alike. In 2018, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, marking a significant escalation in the trade conflict. This ignited a tit-for-tat trade war, with each side responding to the other's tariffs with their own set of economic measures. Both sides exchanged tariffs, targeting a wide range of products from electronics to agricultural goods, affecting businesses and consumers in both countries. The Biden administration initially sought to de-escalate the trade tensions, engaging in diplomatic efforts to find common ground. However, it maintained many of the tariffs imposed by the previous administration, signaling a continued tough stance on trade issues. The United States cited concerns about unfair trade practices by China, such as intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer, which it claims put American companies at a disadvantage. Additionally, the U.S. aims to reduce its trade deficit with China, which has been a long-standing issue in the bilateral trade relationship. China, for its part, has denied these allegations, arguing that the U.S. is trying to contain its economic rise and maintain its own global dominance. In response to U.S. tariffs, China has implemented retaliatory measures of its own, targeting American exports and further escalating the trade tensions. This has created a climate of uncertainty and volatility in the global economy, with businesses and investors closely monitoring the developments and bracing for potential impacts on international trade and economic growth. The latest escalation in the trade war came in April 2025. China announced it would impose a 4% tariff on all goods imported from the United States. This dramatic move sent shockwaves through the global economy, signaling China's willingness to engage in a protracted trade battle. The 34% tariffs cover a vast array of American products, including agricultural goods, automobiles, and machinery. These tariffs are designed to inflict maximum pain on the U.S. economy by targeting sectors where China believes it has leverage. China's decision to impose such sweeping tariffs is a calculated gamble. It hopes to force the U.S. to back down from its demands. However, it also carries significant risks for the Chinese economy, including higher prices for consumers and reduced demand for Chinese exports. The technology and agriculture sectors are among the hardest hit by the escalating trade war. These sectors are strategically important for both the U.S. and China, making them key battlegrounds in the trade conflict. The U.S. has imposed restrictions on exports of high-tech components to China. This is aimed at curbing China's technological advancements, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence and 5G telecommunications. In response, China has threatened to restrict exports of rare earth minerals, which are crucial for the production of many high-tech products. In the agricultural sector, China has been a major buyer of U.S. soybeans and other crops. However, retaliatory tariffs have disrupted this trade, hurting American farmers and benefiting agricultural producers in other countries such as Brazil. The trade war between the U.S. and China is having a ripple effect across the global economy. Businesses around the world are facing uncertainty and disruption. Supply chains are being disrupted, and investment is being curtailed. The International Monetary Fund has warned that the trade war could shave off 0.5% of global GDP growth. This would have significant consequences for both developed and developing countries. The trade war is also fueling protectionist sentiment worldwide. Other countries are increasingly resorting to tariffs and other trade barriers. This trend threatens to undermine the rules-based trading system that has underpinned global prosperity for decades. Section 5. American businesses and consumers bearing the brunt. While the trade war is intended to protect American jobs and businesses, it is having the opposite effect in many cases. American businesses that rely on exports to China are facing lost sales and shrinking profits. Some companies have been forced to lay off workers or relocate production overseas. Consumers are also feeling the pain of the trade war. Tariffs on Chinese goods have led to higher prices for a wide range of products, from clothing and electronics to furniture and appliances. This is putting a strain on household budgets and dampening consumer spending. Moreover, the trade war is creating uncertainty for businesses, making it difficult for them to plan for the future. This uncertainty can lead to reduced investment, slower economic growth, and job losses. Section 6. China's strategy: self-reliance and diversification. China is pursuing a two-pronged strategy to mitigate the impact of the trade war. First, it is seeking to become more self-reliant in key sectors, such as technology and agriculture. This involves investing heavily in research and development, promoting domestic innovation and reducing its dependence on foreign suppliers. Second, China is diversifying its trading partners. It is strengthening ties with other countries, particularly in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This is aimed at reducing its reliance on the U.S. market and securing alternative sources of supply and demand. China's strategy is not without its challenges. Achieving self-reliance in certain sectors, such as semiconductors, will require significant time and investment. Diversifying its trading partners will take time and effort to build new relationships and establish new supply chains. Section 7. The political calculus, nationalism, and economic anxiety. In this section, we delve into the intricate relationship between rising nationalism and economic anxiety, and how these forces shape the political landscape. The trade war is being driven by a complex mix of economic and political factors. These factors are not just about numbers and trade balances, but also about national pride and the desire for global influence. On the U.S. side, there is a growing sense that China has not played fair on trade. This belief is rooted in years of trade deficits and perceived unfair practices. This sentiment is fueled by concerns about job losses, intellectual property theft, and the erosion of American manufacturing. Many Americans feel that their economic security is being undermined, and China's growing economic and military might. The rapid rise of China as a global power has added to these anxieties, creating a sense of urgency to address these issues. In China, there is a sense of national pride that is deeply intertwined with its economic achievements. The Chinese government has fostered a narrative of resurgence and strength, and a determination to stand up to what it perceives as U.S. attempts to contain its rise. This has led to a strong nationalist sentiment that supports the government's stance in the trade war. The trade war has played into nationalist sentiment within China, reinforcing the idea that the country must be self-reliant and resilient in the face of external pressures, making it more difficult for leaders to compromise. The heightened nationalism on both sides has created a political environment where backing down is seen as a sign of weakness. Both countries are facing domestic political pressures that make it difficult to back down from the trade war. These pressures are not just economic but also deeply political and cultural, that make it difficult to back down from the trade war. Leaders are caught between the need to protect national interests and the desire to avoid a prolonged conflict. In the U.S., President Biden is under pressure from both Democrats and Republicans to take a tough stance on China. This bipartisan support for a hardline approach reflects the widespread concern over China's actions. To take a tough stance on China, the political climate in the U.S. is charged with calls for action, making it difficult for any leader to appear conciliatory. In China, President Xi Jinping cannot afford to be seen as weak on the world stage. His leadership is closely tied to the image of a strong and assertive China, making compromise a challenging prospect. Section 8. Finding a way out. Dialogue and compromise. The trade war between the U.S. and China is harmful to both countries and the global economy. Finding a way out of the impasse will require dialogue, compromise, and a willingness to address each other's concerns. One possible path forward is a phased agreement that addresses the most pressing issues first. This could include a rollback of some tariffs, increased market access for U.S. companies in China, and stronger protections for intellectual property. Another important step would be to strengthen the rules-based trading system. This could involve reforming the World Trade Organization, WTO, to make it more effective in addressing unfair trade practices and resolving disputes. Section 9. The future of global trade, towards a new equilibrium. The trade war between the U.S. and China is a symptom of a larger shift in the global economic order. This conflict is not just about tariffs and trade deficits. It represents a deeper struggle for economic supremacy and influence on the world stage. China's rise as an economic powerhouse is challenging the long-standing dominance of the United States. Over the past few decades, China has transformed itself from a developing nation into a global economic leader, with significant advancements in technology, manufacturing, and infrastructure. This is leading to a period of adjustment and uncertainty. Businesses and investors around the world are grappling with the implications of this shift, as traditional trade routes and economic alliances are being re-evaluated. The trade war is likely to have lasting consequences for global trade. Supply chains are being disrupted and companies are being forced to rethink their strategies and operations. Consumers may also feel the impact through changes in prices and availability of goods. It has already led to a shift towards regionalization, with countries seeking to forge closer trade ties with their neighbors. This trend towards regional trade agreements is reshaping the global economic landscape, as nations look to reduce their dependence on distant markets. The future of global trade will depend on the ability of the U.S. and China to find a way to coexist and cooperate. Both nations have much to gain from a stable and prosperous global economy, but achieving this will require careful negotiation and mutual respect. This will require both countries to make adjustments and compromises. They must address not only their economic differences, but also their political and strategic concerns. It will also require a commitment to upholding the principles of free and fair trade. International institutions like the World Trade Organization will play a crucial role in mediating disputes and ensuring that trade policies are transparent and equitable for all parties involved.